Now, this story you're about to hear, I feel like we should have a drum roll or something. Because the states are supposed to share power with the federal government 50-50. And that's the federalist view. The anti-federalists wanted even more states' power. That's why senators were popularly elected only since 1917. Well, 1913 they passed it, but the first time it started happening was 1917 with the 17th Amendment. And if you expand out on that, we now have a federal imperial government itself run by foreign special interest. And the UN, UNESCO, others claim most of the federal lands in this country as collateral on the national debt. Look that up. Just like third world countries have to give their public lands over to the IMF and World Bank. That's why Rockefeller created the national parks. Now, national parks are great, but they're only a few percentage points of the overall federal lands where they're closing roads, harassing people on four-wheelers, kicking campers out, and saying, we don't want humans here, period. That's part of training you that that land isn't yours so they can give it to the Chinese government like they've given hundreds of thousands of acres in places like Nevada that's 89% federal. Places like Utah are over 65% federal. Roughly half the country is under federal control, ladies and gentlemen. And now the feds are in states like Texas trying to claim all the land on both sides of the Colorado or the Red River. We're talking about trillions here over time. Bill Clinton used these rules to shut down the only clean-burning coal in this hemisphere. In Utah. Then overnight, it doubled the stock that he was invested in China, the only other clean-burning coal in the world, after they put the regulations in on us to use the coal. So that's what's going on here. That's what's unfolding, and that's why this is such a big deal. Utah transfer of public lands. From the encyclopedia, the state of Utah passed legislation in 2012, the Utah Transfer of Public Lands Act, to require the federal government to grant the majority of federal land to the state back to the state of Utah for 2014. Well, 2015's here. The state has pointed out that the federal government controls more than 50% of the land west of Kansas. In Utah's case, 64.5%. I think it's more than that if you count some of the other stuff. A situation that has increasingly resulted in tensions across the Rocky Mountain West. They've got 89% of states like Nevada, and that's not enough. So joining us is Ken Ivory, Utah House Representatives and President of the American Lands Council. He's a District 47, was elected to the Utah House of Representatives in November of 2010. And he has developed and secured passage of legislation that these efforts include the Transfer of Public Lands Act and the passage of bills backed by the Utah Association of CPAs to begin reducing state dependence on federal funds they call Financial Ready Utah. He's the president of the American Lands Council. Ken dedicates his time to educating legislators and community leaders throughout the states about the jurisdictional rights and duties to manage, protect, and care for the lands within our borders. Now, again, I'm not going to go any further, but he's the author of Where's the Line? How States Protect the Constitution. This is the kind of guy we need in Congress, the type of person we need in the Senate, the type of person we need as the federal land commissioner, the type of person we need over the different federal bureaus, not a bunch of globalists with special interests that want to be robber barons. The robber barons funded in the last 100 years taking over of state governments so people out west didn't know the land was theirs. And they'll say, oh, they're going to build factories, make it all ugly. No, they're not. No, it's like 98% empty out there. The globalists are the ones coming in that take the land and turn it over to selective groups. They don't want us having access to it. This guy's a hero. He got it passed. Now it's starting to be implemented. And if they can do this and block the out-of-control feds, who aren't even feds, the federal argument's over because it's been taken over by UNESCO. It's under UN treaty, Agenda 21, on record, that we can't develop this country. It's a fraud. It's an economic embargo, just like shutting off our power plants. And if he can get this deployed to other states, this could cause an economic boom, the likes of which we've never seen. This is so exciting. They're even trying to stop ski resorts being put in out west now, saying it's bad for the earth. It's a load of bull. Humans tend to make the environment better when they actually live in the area. So joining us, I know I'm ranting, is this state rep. I know that's a big intro, but I wanted to fill the listeners in on why this is such a big deal. Here's the headline: Utah demands Fed surrender lands by December 31st. That's New American Magazine. That came and passed. So exciting, sir. Give us a presentation on what's happening.
Well, thanks, Alex. It is a big time. It's a wonderful time to be alive, as Ronald Reagan said. I was just down in Austin last week doing a training for new legislators in Texas. This is an issue that transcends the West, because beyond Colorado, states in the East are spending billions of dollars a year to pay the federal government to manage the forest in a way that burns 6 million acres a year, kills millions of animals, destroys that resource, pollutes the air, destroys the watershed for generations. You all east of Colorado and across the nation spending billions of dollars a year to lock up what the Government Accountability Office said is more recoverable oil in Utah, Colorado, Wyoming than the rest of the world combined. Now, another important thing, we were invited to come and give a presentation to the Reagan Library a couple months ago on national security. Our national security cannot operate. Our electronics technology, renewable energy technology cannot operate without rare earth minerals. And right now, 95% of the rare earth minerals for those industries to function come from China. The price is going exponential, and we've got rare earth minerals locked up all over the Western lands under federal control. Now, here's the critical thing, Alex. Here's how simple this is. You get right back to the fundamental principles, right? Governments exist to secure these rights: life, liberty, property, and self-government. That's why a government exists. Well, without the right and control of property, we don't have liberty. And so here's the situation. You've got the federal government controls more than 50% of the land west of Kansas, but the statehood promises, called enabling acts, the statehood promises are the same. In many cases, they're word for word the same. In some cases, Montana and North Dakota, for example, it's the same document. And yet, on one hand, the federal government transfers the land, and on the other, they don't. Now, promises are the same. What most people don't realize is that at one point, Illinois, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, and of course, Alex, you know that great western state way over there of Florida? They were as much as 90% federally controlled for decades. And they were sending resolutions to Congress saying, hey, we can't educate our kids. We can't grow our economy. Our people are leaving our state because you're controlling all our land. They banded together. They compelled Congress to transfer their land, honor their statehood agreement. And we're simply doing the same thing today. We expect Congress to honor the very same statehood terms that they kept with all states east of Colorado, because it is the only solution big enough to get to better access, better health, better productivity. And so what people can do, they go to that American Lands Council website, AmericanLandsCouncil.org. Number one, you can sign the petition and get in the game. Log in at the website, get in the game. We're leading the nation in restoring the rights of property, liberty, and self-governance, which restores our balance, as you were talking about. The other thing you do is simply tell someone. Tell somebody else about this. Show them that map. Get them in the game. And critically, tell your leaders. Don't assume they know. Don't assume they understand. Tell them, and tell them persistently. And as Thomas Hart Benton, he was the Democratic senator from Missouri who rallied all those western states in the 1850s. He said, you got to get your members of Congress to fix their eyes steadily upon the period of the speedy distinction of the federal title to all the lands within their boundaries. And they did it, Alex. Illinois is not 96% federally controlled. Missouri is not 90% federally controlled. Louisiana is not 90% federally controlled. And they have the exact same statehood terms that these western states do today. So that's, in a nutshell, that's where we're at. Happy to go wherever you'd like and answering questions. This is a big subject. There's a lot of information on that website, AmericanLandsCouncil.org. You can get to the Facebook page as well. We push information out every day. But this is the single solution big enough to restore balance in our nation and get us back to liberty, property, self-governance, where we have better access, better health, better productivity on our lands.
Absolutely. Ken Ivory, he is the president and head and founder of AmericanLandsCouncil.org. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason products cost so much, the reason that our economy is stalling is we're not being given access to the rare earth minerals, to coal, you name it. But China is. They're in Australia, they're in Africa, they're in Latin America. They're exploring. And American companies aren't doing it because the regulations And the feds are trying to get more land out west. I mean, take the Bundy Ranch situation. There were 34 families. Now there's one. We can't even produce beef in America because of regulations. More and more farmers are giving up because special interests, from my research, want prohibitive costs there that they're able to be exempt from so that they don't have any competition. And if we're able to free up, what are some of the numbers? I know they're on the Land Council website. I mean, am I exaggerating to say that if we start freeing up even 10, 20, 30% of Western land and some of the federal land in the East, that this would just make the 10% growth rates that we had until the 1920s look small?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. You can see this map right here over my shoulder. The Institute for Energy Research early last year said there's more than $150 trillion in mineral value locked up in the federally controlled lands. At the same time, under failed federal policies that tie the hands of these good workers on the ground that would like to care for the land, we're burning 6 million acres of forest, Alex, 6 million acres a year. That's polluting the air. It's destroying the watershed. It's killing millions of animals. Instead of sequestering that carbon into homes and viable products where that wood then stores that carbon for an indefinite period, but the federal policies that are supposedly environmental policies, destroying the air, destroying the water, destroying the animals, destroying the habitat for generations. No, we've got all the tools. We've got all the tools. We simply have to get back to the very simple constitutional remedy of liberty, right, and control of property and self-governance. Let me tell you a story, Alex, what's happening right now. Canada, our neighbor to the north, over the last decade, Canada has been transferring land, water, and resources to the provinces. And then just last year, they completed the transfer of land, water, and resources to the Northwest Territories. And here's what they said they discovered. They said, we discovered that when we let people closest to the matter, closest to the land, water, and resources make the decisions, we learned that you get a better decision.
That's not rocket science. That's not rocket science.
Yeah, that's not rocket science. And so in the land of liberty, we're going the other way. We've got a federal government that's centralizing control over more and more aspects of every aspect of our daily life. And so, Alex, what we really got to do is in the states, we've got to help our federal governing partner focus very specifically, focus on doing those things that only it can do and do exceptionally well, like world peace and a sound monetary system. Focus on doing only those things that only it can do well, and leave local zoning and planning and the tending of the garden to those people that know the soil, know the climate, know the culture, know the geography, know the geology, and are right there to deal with the circumstances, whose lives and livelihoods depend upon that land, like Canada discovered.
Now, obviously, the media set things up where discrimination is only white against black or black against white or north against south. That's how they want us thinking. But isn't the ultimate discrimination the fact that special interest and socialists in D.C. and others don't want the West and the states to have the same freedoms as the East has? I mean, how can you have maybe 5–10% of the land in the East being federal and upwards of 90% in states like Nevada? How can Congress and how can the feds say no to the law you've passed? So maybe spend some time on that, please, sir, as the state rep that helped get this passed and authored. And then walk us through the procedure now, because we know there's going to be special interest that are going to try to stop this.
That's a great point, Alex. What I want to point out first is this is not a partisan effort. Republicans and Democrats voted for the bill. Republicans and Democrats on the committees and the commissions. In fact, in Nevada, bipartisan commission unanimously approved moving forward on the transition for the transfer of public lands. Critical effort, because educating our kids is not a partisan issue. Burning up our animals in our watershed is not a partisan issue. Having jobs and having a roof over our head and caring for our lands is not a partisan issue. So we got some counties all over the West that have less than 5% taxable land. How do you take care of kids and roads and public safety when you've only got 5% taxable land? So in terms of moving forward, there are states all over the West now that are starting to take legislative action on this very same thing. You've got Arizona is taking action. Nevada's already taken action, working more. Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, Alaska's now getting in the game on this. South Carolina, Alex, did a resolution supporting the transfer of public lands. And so for your listeners that are in states east of Colorado, if you go to the resources and then what's happening in